Good evening, everybody. It's another strange night for Strange Normal. I almost didn't make it tonight because I had a plumbing problem. We're up there. We're working on the new studio up the top of the hill, and man, oh man, I almost said, you know what, I can't even make it. But fortunately, we have a pre-recording tonight of an interview I did with a guy named Andrew Jones. He's continuing Ron Wyatt's legacy and looking for different things that are over there in across the pond, and we're going to talk all about that tonight. But before we do, I got some things to tell you. We got some interesting stuff coming up, so make sure you are hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell icon, because you're going to want to stick around to know more about what's next. See you soon.
The system is totally rigged and broken.
Demon spirits will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies that are coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet.
It is now 89 seconds to midnight. This is the closest the world has ever been.
I still think these are what people call angels. I'm dying to know what they've got to say.
Pretty severe suffering brings them.
These entities have the ability to appear in any form.
Strange Normal. My name is Bradley. We talk about the stranger things that happen in your normal life to give you a biblical understanding of what is going on. And there's a lot going on. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell icon to show us that you like us, to show us that you are listening. Because that more that you hit that like button, the more it reaches out and grabs more people that haven't heard this stuff. And that's the easiest thing you can do to help us out here. Hit that like button, hit it, and let us know a comment. We read every one. Why are my hands dirty? Well, I have sealant on my hands because I was putting in some of the toiletries and bathtub and all this other stuff that was over in the other place. And man, oh man, what a leak. We had quite a trouble over there, and I just could not get away. And I literally walked into here 10 minutes. I'm hitting buttons, turning everything on, trying to get everything. See, it's if I touch it the wrong way, this light flickers. You don't care, but this is interesting to me because we are actually going to do a show tonight, regardless of how clean my hands are. But I do want to tell you that there has been an immense amount of work done, and I want to. I'm excited to be getting over there here pretty soon and actually doing some live interviews. Tonight's episode is a pre-recording, but it's a very good, interesting pre-recording because it's. I reached out after that whole issue with the government having a CIA file talking about the Ark of the Covenant, how they were looking through it for remote viewing. I was like, okay, let's reach out to somebody I know that's over there, that does tours over there, and see what he thinks about this. And I want to get his understanding of it. And I think we put this story to bed tonight. We're going to really dig in deep and understand what is it actually saying. Is it different than what the Bible says? And what can we learn from it through biblical principles? His name is Andrew Jones, and he's a very close friend of mine. I actually lived with him before I got married, and at his house. And he and I were both IT guys at the time, computer programmers, information systems, all this stuff. And he decided to go out and to do archaeology. And I decided to do real estate. You know, it's interesting how life works sometimes. But is the whole story behind that? I'll spare you the details. But the long story, short story is, he got very, very, very deeply involved with some of the Ron Wyatt group. And whatever you believe about them, it doesn't matter right now, because it's still interesting, because he's grabbed a lot of knowledge from just being over there, knowing where things are. And we're going to show you in Google Maps tonight. We're going to show you in a lot of different actual areas that happened, along with some very interesting stories about him being a very popular person to go to now over there if you want to know things. And I mean, big, well-known people have come to him in many different churches and in many different kingdoms, just wanting to know more about what he knows about the area, and looking for Noah's Ark, looking for the Ark of the Covenant, and all this other stuff. Very, very interesting stuff, and neat to be able to contact him. So we're gonna dig into that, but I want to say, if you're interested in this stuff, join us on Patreon, patreon.com/strangenormal. Those reoccurring, that's the bread and butter of this show. We really appreciate that. That's how we continue. Another part of that is also, I'm a real estate agent, and I want to help you find something, and I can get your agent in your local area to pay me if you find something through me. But you have to contact me first and let me talk to your agent, or let me talk to someone and give you something in the area that will work with you. And if that's something you want to help me out with, I appreciate that, because that will help continue bringing people out here, especially as we expand, which we're trying to do right now, and do more live interviews that would be more interesting for you and bring more people out, and be able to pay for some of those bigger people to come out and ask them some of the more serious questions for hours and hours and hours, instead of just the short hour or an hour and a half that I have with them. All right, enough gab, Brad. Let's get on with it. So one more thing, too. T-shirts. We got free T-shirts for you if you're going to the general conference session coming up on July 3 through something. If you want one of those, the link is going to be in the first comment below. You're going to want to check that out and sign up if that's the case. I'll bring a few extra, but it's your first come, first serve. So you better at least put your name in there if you're thinking about you're going to come there. And then I will email you and confirm that later on. That's if you want a free T-shirt that I'm going to be handing out. Finally, be watching for a video coming out probably Monday on this new Minecraft movie. Very interesting stuff that's happening right now. I don't know if you've seen the news, super rebellious. What is going on with it? And there's a reason for it inside the movie. You're going to see it. I'm going to reveal it to you. It's really phenomenal what's happening here. I'm surprised other channels that usually cover this stuff haven't covered it yet. Really surprised me. So watch for that. It's coming out. It's a big surprise. Let's get right into it, because this is an amazing, interesting show that really dives deep into the Old Testament and understanding what has happened with Ark of the Covenant, with Noah's Ark, and all these stuff that we know is true in the Bible. And if you want to understand the New Testament, specifically Revelation, I have a good book for you. And I don't just put out these books. This is called Revelation Every Day. It's Revelation verse by verse. It's a daily devotional put out by Amazing Facts. It's really good. If you're looking for a daily devotional, something to keep your eyes on God in the morning when you wake up, it's got one page you read, and every single part of it is on the Revelation 1:1, Revelation 1:2. It's really interesting, because by the time you're done with this book, you will understand completely all of Revelation in 1 year. I mean, if that's something that's interesting to you, spending time 10 years at Amazing Facts, I got to know John Ross, who helps Pastor Doug, helps him do some really important work there. He also is co-hosting on Bible Answers Live. He knows Daniel Revelation really, really well. And so I'm sure he helped build this out, because he's done this over and over and over and over and over again. And so really some high talent there that really dives deep. If you want to understand Revelation, buy this. It is in the comments below. A link to it, affiliate link, helps this channel out. Okay, folks, let's dig into the Ark of the Covenant, the Ron Wyatt legacy, and what Andrew Jones is currently up to right now? Let's cut over there now.
I got an email that came in, and it was from a well-known Jewish rabbi, and he was looking for the Ark of the Covenant. They're not allowed in certain spots because if it's holy, then they're not supposed to be in a certain spot. So they had to ask a Gentile, and so he's thinking, looking for equipment that I could hide under my clothing, that I could go into this off-limits area to see if the Ark is hiding there.
Andrew, this is the first time I've seen you in years. I mean, this is really neat to have you back on the actually face to face, because we used to be, before I got married, you were my last roommate basically. You've gone over to Cairo, and tell us, why are you over there? What's going on, and what is your profession now?
Yeah, good to see you too. And so, well, I'm here in Cairo because I got interested in archaeology at a young age. But when COVID hit, I ended up staying overseas. I was doing many trips back and forth between America and the Middle East. And then that led into doing tours because everyone started asking me questions like, hey, is there a way you could take us along on your trips? And I wasn't even thinking about it. And then they wanted to bring their friends. And so I said, okay, we got to turn this into something more than just a casual meetup. And so then that's when I started offering tours. But then COVID hit. And looking at everything, a friend of mine in Turkey at the time, he said I could stay there. And he had built actually a little studio apartment for me. And I looked at the cost of living in Turkey versus California. And it was a perfect fit for me. And it was close. It was my base for doing research. And then I do tours also too across the Middle East. So right now I'm in Cairo. I don't have a tour group right now, but I'm doing some research on the Exodus. And so right before this, I was in Israel, then Jordan, and just back and forth all over the place.
So you've toured. I mean, not just, you don't just go around the city and say, by the way, this is a pyramid. You've taken people, and maybe I shouldn't mention this, but you've taken people all the way up to the top of this burnt mountain. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So one of the I guess most popular trips is the Sinai in Arabia tour we do, and that's also one of my most favorite places to do research. And I love the desert; it's peaceful out there. You just got camels and Bedouins, and So if you go to our website discoveredsinai.com or our YouTube channel Discovered Media, you can find out information about our trips. But I've been on top of that mountain 20 some times now, at the very top, at least 10 times. But I really believe that is the real Mount Sinai. And there's a lot of evidence for that. But I know that's another topic. But I do take tours out to Saudi Arabia.
That's crazy. Wow. So and right now you're working on not only Discovered Media, but you have the Ark thing. That's part of the whole thing too. You're finding Noah's Ark.
Yeah. So there is a site out there that was discovered in 1959. It's called the Durupanar boat formation, or an Ark site. And the Turkish government built a visitor center above it. So we now help manage that. We're also teamed up with different Turkish professors in promoting the site and also doing more research than what was done in the past. So, for example, in 2019, we organized the latest GPR. We brought in outside people from actually across the U.S., experts, and they did a radar, ground penetrating radar. That's what GPR is. And that could peer below the surface. Last year, we've helped a local scientist do soil testing, comparing the soil inside the boat formation to outside it. So we really got some interesting results we hope to publish later in the year. But so the Noah's Ark site in Turkey, we're doing the research. We believe it's Noah's Ark. It's not a salvational issue. So if you think it's up on the big mountain or someplace else, that's fine. But this is, to us, the best candidate, and we can, actually walk on it and research it. And so I'm half the year in Turkey and then half the year in the rest of the Middle East. That's usually my schedule. So when it gets cold and snowy on the Ark side and you can't do much there, I head south. And I love Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, these countries where most of the Bible stories happened in this area of the world. So it's very special, and I love being here.
Yeah, I've often thought about coming out and doing your tour because I think that's really neat to actually go over there and do that. We might have to talk about that sometime. But
yes, come see us here.
Absolutely. You have a YouTube channel as well. It has over 200,000 subscribers if I remember right. What is your YouTube channel?
We're up to 360,
Oh wow.
almost 70 actually. I just checked this morning. It's Discovered Media, and so that just covers everything. I don't know why I just came up with the name and thought, okay, I'll put everything under this. I used to own the domain. I still own the domain name discovered.net and .org. And so later on, I started making YouTube videos of my travels and the research. I just put it under there. And we had about a year ago, we hit. It was actually 2023. I brought out Pastor, what's his name, Jim Scudder Jr. He has a mega church in Chicago, evangelical pastor. He's on TBN, and he wanted to film Mount Sinai in Arabia. So he brought his whole film crew and some donors of his and his family, and we filmed that. And when I put it up November 23, it suddenly went viral. And they gave me permission to put it up, and within a couple months, I hit 100,000. So
That's
by
crazy.
remember March of last year, it was we hit 100,000, and then from March until now we're 3 times as big, and some other videos went viral. But yeah, so it's been fun. I didn't expect it to gain momentum like that. It just like a side project. Just people want to see what we're doing. And so, yeah, I sometimes I put a lot of videos out, and other times, I get lazy. But it takes a lot of effort to make videos or come up with content. I've been trying to do shorts and stuff like that, and I'm nowhere on TikTok. But we had a TikTok guy from Miami, a Hispanic gentleman who just became saved, and he wanted to see these sites he heard about on the internet. So he came out to Saudi Arabia last year, him and his wife, and he has one arm because of a motorcycle accident.
Oh.
And he has over 2 million TikTok subscribers
Oh
and
wow.
or followers, whatever you call them. And so he climbed the mountain with one arm, him and his wife. And so he made all these short videos, and he told me his whole system. It was amazing because 6 months later, he said he had 300 million views of just his videos about Mount Sinai and all of this stuff. And so he wanted to come back, and he came back last September to Noah's Ark, and now he wants to do it again, to do the whole Exodus route. So we help others too, and we have pastors always contacting us, ministries, news organizations. They want our footage or videos, and most of the time it's give it for free and or do the interviews. This last year, Noah's Ark was in the news a lot last year. Last week.
Uh-huh.
And we had the Daily Mail. I just did an interview online with The Sun from Britain.
Hmm.
And one of our colleagues did an interview with a morning show in Australia. They wanted to, everyone's
Wow.
interested in the Ark. This was Noah's Ark, and it hits the news, maybe once a year. But then right after that, the Ark of the Covenant hit the news. We got both Arks now in the news. It's interesting timing.
It is. It really is. And so much is happening right now, and that's why we started talking. We send articles to each other over Facebook Messenger every once in a while, sometimes email. And one of the things that came across was this ARC thing, because the U.S. government seems to be going through this phase of disclosure and getting all the secrets out and all this stuff. Trump has been really pushing for this idea. And one of the bundles that came out was a bunch of CIA documents from the 80s. And so you had sent me, or we had communicated, I forget how it happened, but we were talking about this thing, how the government was doing some strange stuff to try to find the Ark of the Covenant.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so I dug into this a little bit, and I wanted to bring you on as the expert, because you know more about and have studied this stuff. I mean, as far as anybody I know, you're actually over there and actually looking into this stuff. You've been involved with a little bit of Ron Wyatt's material. Is that correct?
Yeah, in fact, that's how I got interested. I was a kid in middle school, and he had come out to a church in Sacramento back in 1991 or so, and it was a school night, and my father went, and he came back and told me, "Hey, this guy said he found this and that." I was like, "Oh, I'm going to check out his book." I was interested in history and archaeology, and the local store had his Noah's Ark book, but it also had other things in the book. And so I actually decided to call him. So this was before email and the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called 411, and the operator said, "Hey, I have a Ron White here, and I can dial you through." And so I said, "Okay." And so he picked up. I was surprised. And I just started, I was, early teens. So I was just I talked for, I think, 2 hours that first time, or the following call. I think he had just come back from the Middle East. And so I started talking to him a lot until he had passed away in 1999. But then in 97, that was my first time going overseas. A friend of mine in Florida, who's passed away too, but he wanted to go see Noah's Ark on his own. So he contacted me as a travel companion. And I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And so my parents supported me, and I got out over there, and I saw the Ark site and the Daruppanar Noah's Ark site in Turkey, and I just had to come back. That gave me the travel bug, and but yeah. So then fast forward to after Ron had passed away, his organization led by Richard Reeves, they got a permit from the Israeli Antiquities Authority, the IAA, to try to verify some of Ron's claims surrounding the Ark of the Covenant. And so they got a permit to do some excavations in a cave system, this quarry called Zedekiah's Cave or Solomon's Quarries, which is under the old city of Jerusalem. It's a huge man-made cavern. And then also a couple of years after that, this was 2003. And then in 2005, 6, and 7, they got permission to do work in the Garden Tomb, which is kind of like the competing site to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where it's the traditional site where they believe Christ was buried and crucified and resurrected. So his tomb. So there's you can say the Protestant site just outside the city walls. And this is where they were excavating. This is where Ron believed that the Ark of the Covenant was hidden on that property. And so so I was involved with that, doing video work, and that was 2005, 6, and that was it. And then for me, my focus has been, Eastern Turkey and Mount Sinai, Arabia. Once we got permission, the first time we got a visa was in 2016. And through a Saudi prince, which is another story, but because this was before the tourist visas were around, so I've been really busy with those two projects. But here and there, people have contacted me about the Ark of the Covenant, things like that. So,
yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, we could go in so many rabbit trails on this thing. I want to, I want to know everything about what you have done, because I haven't really talked to you for years and years now, and so we got to catch up sometime. But the focus, I want to see what is the validity, or how valid is the idea that what they are seeing, what the government was seeing in the 80s, is the actual location of this thing, and what it is that they're actually viewing, because it's got some strange things to it, and that's kind of the point of this. The whole point of this channel is to look into things that are a little bit strange, a little bit weird, a little bit. They are spiritual in nature, and look at the Bible and see exactly through the lens of the Bible if they line up or not. And so one of the things, I want to pull up that article, if you don't mind. I'm going to bring it up on the screen.
Yeah.
So this is a document from December 5, 1988. It's called Project Sunstreak. And what it is, it's from the CIA. You can go to CIA.gov and actually get this document from the United States government. It's a declassified document saying that at this time, September 5, 1988, in project number 209, TNG 209, they had at 9:15 a.m. to 9:45, they had a remote viewer. If you don't know what a remote viewing is, I'm sure you probably do already, Andrew. But it's basically it's what the Bible calls divination.
So, like it was more than seeing the future, but like out of body experience, like you could see another place in the earth or something.
Yeah. So this is kind of an interesting thing, because I don't believe that we should ever be playing with divination at all. But this is it's trying to see things that aren't there through accessing hidden knowledge, basically, and yes, going what they think is your soul leaving your body and going somewhere else, but we believe it's actually demonic entities that are telling these people things or giving them visions. And so looking into this, what's interesting, Andrew, is that I think that this is edgy, because I wonder how much would the demonic realm actually want to tell somebody about where the 10 Commandments are. You know what I mean? That's what exists inside of this Ark of the Covenant. It seems like they would want to kind of make people look in a different direction. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, when I first heard of the story, the first thing I thought of, oh, every couple years or so, there's an article about the Ark being in Ethiopia, for example, a news article. And for me, I think it's somewhere in the Jerusalem area. And we can talk about that more later. But so when I see these stories, I'm thinking, yeah, is this the way to confuse the masses, get people thrown off the trail? And this document actually doesn't say where this so-called remote viewing location is.
Hmm.
The Daily Mail story that kind of got it back into the attention of everyone. They were saying, they brought in Ethiopia, even though they actually, if you read through the document, the person doesn't mention anything like that. It just the person claims that they could hear Arabic voices, but if you look up so Ethiopia, and I had to look this up. They're the main languages they speak are not Arabic. They have so if you want to say this person was actually viewing the correct location of the Ark of the Covenant, then it's someplace else and not Ethiopia.
Interesting.
Um, but they mentioned a mosque and a minaret, and we can go through it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think I'm with you on this. That this is definitely not like this is not God trying to reveal to the world where the Ark is.
Right.
It's interesting that in 1988, the CIA was testing these methods, and they thought they would try it on the Ark of the Covenant. This was what 6 or 7 years after the Raiders of the Lost Ark movie came out, which was very popular, and of course throughout the decades, people have always looked for the Ark or claimed they found it. So there's an interest in it, but it's interesting that the CIA is testing this. And I saw in the document it says it was approved for release in 2000. But I quick search on Google News and I need to check, but I didn't see a story that was before this year. So I don't know if someone just recently found out because they're going through all the documents that were declassified. But at the very top of this document, or every page, it says approved for release. It says 2000 right there, right?
Yeah.
I think
I see that.
right. Yeah, August. Yeah, so I don't know if this was picked up before or this is just a recycled story. I didn't see anyone saying it's recycled.
Yeah.
The news is really they do that a lot. But so I just to me the first thing I thought of was timing. It's like, okay, what's going on that they thought this was necessary to put out in
Release
the
right
news
now.
and get people focused in on it. But it seems to be brand new. Like no one picked it up out of all the declassified documents. 25 years ago.
That's
So that's my initial thought. And that's what I wanted to check out more of it, which gets really interesting as you go through it.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking too. Why is this coming out now? It's if it's out in 2000, maybe it's government bureaucracy that kind of held it back. I don't know, but for whatever reason, someone found this and someone pushed it out into the internet, and they found. Well, I mean, this is what they're saying. So I kind of want to go through this and see what is the validity of this. It says viewer 32 attained an excellent sight contact, doing very well with stage 4 structure. Viewer also exhibited the ability to keep AOL at a minimum. So I had to really dig into what in the world this is talking about because I don't know anything about remote viewing really. But I was like, okay, so ChatGPT, what is AOL? So this is what it says.
Besides that organization that mail you, just
I know. America Online.
Yeah, what is this?
So AOL refers to the conscious mind's tendency to interpret, analyze, or guess and at impressions received during remote viewing, rather than just recording the raw subconscious perception. It is known as a mental interference that can distort the accuracy. And so they give an example. This is, I thought, was a really good example. If a remote viewer receives an impression, a vague impression, because that's all they're being given, they're actually seeing this stuff. It's a vague impression of this tall structure, but then consciously thinks that must be the Eiffel Tower. That assumption is AOL. That is, in other words, what is it called? Analytical overlay. And in other words, that's an assumption. Okay. Yeah, so that's what they meant by that is that they keep AOL to a minimum and are just stating the facts of what their impressions are. And what's interesting about this whole document is they said that it's provided a 50-50 success rate in their testing. So
that's pretty crazy. Wow.
Yeah, but let me bring it back to us real quick. I think that's that's interesting, but that's also disturbing at the same time, because if you're the CIA and you're making mission critical observations and your 50% success rate, that's I don't know if I'm going to rely on that really. But
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if this was just a test they were doing, or they actually used this to try to gather intelligence, overseas from, Washington area. It doesn't tell us much. I didn't actually dig into the whole project, so I don't know if they shut it down or they're still trying to do this. But I think with something like this, you compare it to what the Bible says about this method, and then you realize that it is not approved by God. But you can then see, okay, well, what were they? What did they say about the ark? And I think that's the interesting part, because it is pointing to. And you can say they're just guessing, but it is pointing to an Arabic-speaking country or region or area, and I think they even said in the Middle East in one of the words. If you go through the document, you can see where they write down words as they're getting these impressions or whatever you want to call it, and like the stream of thought. Like just keep writing down these words and things, and then they draw things out.
And you got to understand a little bit about how this stuff works. So I asked ChatGPT this too. I said, you know what? How does this remote viewing actually work? And it said, I like how ChatGPT always validates me. Great question. This this gets into the heart of remote viewing. And does this viewer know what the target is? That's essentially what I want to know. He says, no. In standard remote viewing protocols, the viewer does not know what the target is, what they're trying to view. In other words, in this case, the Ark of the Covenant. This is called a blind session. The viewer is given only target numbers or coordinates, which randomly assigned to the actual target. In other words, they probably have a picture of it in some other room or something like that, and says you are going to be remote viewing the actual thing of this, but we're not going to tell you what this is. The target could be a person, place, event, object, anything that the tasker wants intel on. This is done to avoid analytical overlay, AOL, which is what we talked about, and to keep the impressions as pure as possible. So it goes into the method and different things like that, and the stage and the process and actually do it. I don't care too much about that because I don't want that to be something that we do. But But this is what the viewer. So the viewer doesn't know what he's trying to look at. So I think it's interesting to see what is being told to them, to actually match it with the Bible and see if this is a real thing. Target is a container. This container has another container inside of it. The target is fashioned of wood, gold, and silver. The target is similar in shape to AOL, a coffin. And in other words, that's AOL, the coffin. And it is a decorated with seraphim. That's interesting that he didn't know what he was looking at, and he said it's seraphim. See sketch on page 16. The target is located somewhere in the Middle East, as the language spoken by the individuals present seem to be Arabic. Visuals of surrounding buildings indicate the presence of a mosque dome. See page 12. Individuals in the area were clothed in virtually all white, had black hair and dark eyes. One figure I had honed in on wore a mustache. The target is hidden. Underground, dark and wet were all aspects of the location of the target. The purpose of the target is to bring people together. See page 16. It has something to do with ceremony, memory, homage, and the resurrection. There is an aspect of spirituality, information, lessons, and historical knowledge far beyond what we know. The target is protected. This is what really was bizarre to me. The target is protected by entities. See page 14, and can only be opened now by those who are authorized to do so. This container cannot be opened until the time is deemed correct. Once it is time to open the container, these mechanics of the lock system will be found to be fairly simple. Individuals opening the container by prying or striking are destroyed by the container's protectors. See page 17. Through the use of power unknown to us. What a weird thing. And so he has a bunch of scribbles. This is his original documentation. And people want to go out and actually look at that deeper. That's welcome to. I don't care too much for it, but I thought the summary was rather interesting.
The summary, like if you scroll down how they're doing this, the guys is kind of like have a stream of thought. Like he's just writing down these words, like wet, moist, cold, dark.
Right.
And then the guy who made the summary, he said, okay, this is where it's located, this and that. Now, the interesting thing is that on that first paragraph, it says this is a container in a container. It's kind of like the Indiana Jones movie where you have a stone sarcophagus and they hid the ark inside. And just like Ron Wyatt's claim too, he said it was in a stone box. But then it says the target, being the Ark of the Covenant, is fashioned of wood, gold, and silver. And we know in the Bible that silver was not used to make the Ark of the Covenant. But when you actually go down through the document, the guy does not say, I mean, the way they're doing this, it looks like he just has a list of words.
Yeah.
So he doesn't say that the actual box was made of silver. In fact, I was looking at the words, I saw stone and steel, and
Yeah.
so I don't know how they made up the summary. But they had drawings and like there's a part in the summary that talks about protectors. So if let me scroll down, if I could find it. I went through and uploaded these images to ChatGPT, and most of these words you can decipher. They're well written, but some of the ones I couldn't understand what they're saying.
What page are you on?
Let's see. This is page 18. There's a part of the document where they talk about like those protecting. And I don't know. Go to the container. Okay. There's those 8. Now look at the one that had the wheel. That was page 16.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right there, right above it. See those square brackets? That's kind of like, to me, I don't know if that's the guy telling like the viewer person to do this. It says go to container and open it or
Up.
Open it up. I don't know what that other word is.
I don't know what that is.
Discover it as you go, or describe it. Describe it as you go.
Okay.
So go to the container, open it up, describe it as you go. Then here's where they do mention silver with gold. It does say like that first word below it on the left.
Silver.
What
I
is
see
that?
that.
Metallic. It says metallic.
Silver, gold.
Okay, yeah, there's silver, then there's gold, blue, red. I don't know, like how does this? But the summary, like they skip, they don't mention blue and red because it doesn't fit what they're trying to describe. I don't know. And then they have a wheel drawn. Like, what is that?
What is that?
So it just
is the Ark of the Covenant? Is it on legs or is it on a chariot of some kind when they moved it?
No, no, there are feet. So the Bible in Exodus described that had 4 stands or little feet. Like think of a piece of furniture that keep it off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So then I kept scrolling through this because it mentions strange things about that the ark is protected by what is the word it uses? Entities or
it's weird. What in the world? I mean,
well, I'm trying to find where. Okay, how is it open? And then, so scroll down. If you go back to this, page 18.
I'm gonna cut over. Add your audio back. Okay.
Yeah, see it, and it has in brackets, how is it open? So I don't know if that's the question the manager tells the remote viewer, but then the guy draws they misspell it, Saradin, but they call it a seraphim. Now, what's really interesting is a very similar wing-shaped creature was carved in Zedekiah's cave, this right across the street from the Garden Tomb area. This underground quarry, and it was found in the 1800s, and they removed the carving. Now it's in London, in England. So very similar shape. And I wish I had a photo to show you, but you can look it up. Cherubim, Zedekiah's cave, and you'll see an image of this carving that was in the area that Ron claimed that a tunnel led to the Garden Tomb. So suddenly you're seeing, okay, well, there's like they're mixing things up because they're saying, how is it open? Cherubim, or Sarah, they call it Saradin, opens it. Now, here's something just for like your Adventist viewers. We're Adventists, but if you were to read the Spirit of Prophecy, She says that during all the travels during the ark, when the ark was on Earth, well, it's still here on Earth, but when it was, being moved around, she says four angels guarded it.
Huh.
And so this is why, and she talked about they had the mission of God to keep it safe. They're the ones who knocked over the Philistine god or whatever that was,
Oh
Dagon.
yeah, yeah,
They're the
Dagon.
ones that killed the guy who tried to touch it. I mean, so they were there to protect the ark and these invisible beings. And then if we'll, I guess later on talk about the ark being hidden. But if you go by her writings, you can assume that the ark is still protected by God for a future purpose, just based on what she says. And then the assumption is, did the angels leave it, or are they still there guarding the ark? Um, and so here we have it. This guy is saying that these Saradin are there to open it, to protect it. He calls them being entities or beings. Where was the key word? I think it was entities.
Yeah, entities. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but with the way the devil works, he mixes truth and errors. And since no one's really, there's no proof that the ark is here or there, the different stories, to me, it makes biblical sense that the ark is still in Jerusalem area before the Babylonians destroyed the city. So it's somewhere that there's a lot of caves, that have not even been discovered yet. And according to, and I do believe what Ellen White wrote, that the ark was hidden by righteous people. So like God told them what to do. Like this was not their own idea. And then she says it's still there, undisturbed. But right beside the Garden Tomb is a bus station, which is right below this. They call it Gordon's Calvary. It's the skull face. And right next to that skull face is this cave that's called Jeremiah's Grotto. It's a traditional Jeremiah's Grotto. They say he lived in or stayed there. There's a mosque that guards it, not guards it, but it's just there in the front. And when you're at the Garden Tomb property, where a lot of Protestants believe that that's the tomb of Jesus and he was crucified on that property there, and it makes the most sense. It's outside the city walls, but when you're standing at the Garden Tomb property and looking at that skull face, right beside you see this Ottoman, which is Turkish style minaret with two windows on it, and it has there's actually two minarets. One behind it has more of a dome. The one in front of it is more of a pointed dome, but it has two windows. Now, if you go back to your document and scroll, and this is where it's weird, and I think the devil, he can again mix truth and error.
Sure,
because he does that. But if you go to page 14, and this is what it mentioned in the summary. But if you actually look at the notes, the drawing, there's the minaret. It said, and what it says right beside it says it's a white. To the left, the word white. It's white stones. It says mosque dome, and then it has windows. Now, it's drawn like a tower. And so on a mosque, you do have minarets. Now the one right beside the Garden Tomb is a white towered minaret, and from the Garden Tomb property you see two windows visible on that minaret, and so it's just you can get into confirmation bias where you try, if you believe Ron Wyatt's story, you can say, hey, like this matches perfectly, but then you look at, hey, this is a remote viewing CIA document, and so you got to be very careful with that.
Yeah.
So there are some interesting things in here. Anyways.
Yeah. Oh no, I agree. It's interesting. I wouldn't put my hopes and dreams or any type of belief in it, but it's fascinating to me because even though I get a lot of comments when I brought this up. They said, well, we know, and this is what comments have said. We know that the ark is in heaven. God brought it to heaven. Isn't there a duplicate of it? I mean, wasn't the point to have everything duplicated, even the sanctuary, the tabernacle? In heaven is duplicated on earth, and so that was kind of the point, is to have God on earth with them. They wanted to be with his people, and so what do you think about that? Is it in heaven or is it both here?
Yeah, so uh, if you use just the Bible, we know in Jeremiah, I think it was three. I actually had it up here, Jeremiah 3:16, like John 3:16.
Hmm.
But that's the Jeremiah says there's a time that's coming, and this is the ESV version. It said, "When you have multiplied and been fruitful in the land, in those days, like in the future, declares the Lord, they will say they shall no more say the ark of the covenant of the Lord." It shall not come to mind or be remembered or missed. It shall not be made again. And that's the last verse in the Old Testament that mentions the Ark of the Covenant.
Hmm.
Now he's talking about a future time. I think this would be like the millennium, or in the new Earth, that people won't think about it or need it. Um, but we know that the Ark disappeared right before the Babylonians came and captured the city. Right before that time, I think the last mention of the ark during the kings was Josiah,
Hmm.
and he mentions to the priests that because they were, I guess, because Josiah did all those reforms, and the priests before that, when the temple was being desecrated or used as a pagan temple, they took out the Ark of the Covenant and they were
Hmm.
just kind of carrying it around or putting it in their homes, because Josiah tells them, to stop carrying the Ark of the Covenant. And so here you have this one brief mention of the Ark of the Covenant. And I know I don't want to misquote that verse. Let me just see something here. Let me just look at Josiah Ark. Make
Yeah,
sure
sure.
someone's going to say, you got it wrong there. Um, um, let's see. Yes.
Well,
Um, anyways, and so you have this the Babylonian army coming in, surrounding the city, and then poof, the ark is gone.
hmm.
But the Bible mentions like everything they took to Babylon, like the count. I think it was like the utensils and the bowls. Very detailed count in was it Ezra or Nehemiah, and
Mm.
what they brought back. But the major furniture, like the table of showbread, the menorah, the golden candlestick, the altar of incense, the Ark of the Covenant, they go missing. It's not mentioned. And so some have assumed either, oh, the Babylonians destroyed it. But you think they would write that down in the Bible?
Yeah.
Like, oh, the Babylonians came through and just melted the gold or something. Because it does mention that they melted down, I think, the bronze because there's so much of it. But the Ark is just gone. And then right after this, you have like Maccabees, which is not inspired, but it's a historical book from written a couple decades after the Maccabean revolt. So you're looking at, maybe they say 120 BC or so. So in between the Old and New Testament. It mentions a story about Jeremiah and his men hiding the ark on Mount Nebo, which would be across the Jordan River. And it mentions the ark and the tabernacle was hidden. Um, and then you look at another book that they say dated to right after the second temple was destroyed, so after the time of Christ, around like 100 AD or so. And this is a second Baruch. And in this book, it said that when the Shekinah glory left the temple, God told the earth to swallow up, and I'll read you exactly what it says, which is quite interesting. Second Baruch chapter 6. Again, these are extra biblical books,
Sure.
but written during this probably the Second Temple period, right after the Second Temple was destroyed. And it mentions here, it says, and so this is, I guess, Baruch. He was the scribe of Jeremiah, so he's writing this, they claim.
Hmm.
So I'll just read the first 7 verses here. And it came to pass on the morrow that, lo, the army of the Chaldees, these are the Babylonians, surrounded the city. And at the time of the evening, I, Baruch, left the people, and I went forth and stood by the oak. And I was grieving over Zion, and lamenting over the captivity which had come upon the people. And lo, suddenly a strong spirit raised me and bore me aloft over the wall of Jerusalem, and I beheld, and lo, 4 angels. Interesting that Ellen White talked about 4 angels
Hmm.
protecting the ark. And lo, I beheld 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the city, each of them holding a torch of fire in his hands. And another angel began to descend from heaven and said to them, hold your lamps, do not light them until I tell you. For I am first sent to speak a word to the earth, and to place in it where the Lord the Most High has commanded me. I'm sorry, what the Lord the Most High has commanded me. So verse 7 here it says, "And I saw him descend into the Holy of Holies and take from there the veil, the holy ark, which is the Ark of the Covenant, and the mercy seat, and the two tables, and the holy raiment of the priest, the altar of incense, the 48 precious stones," that would be the ephod, wherewith the priests were adorned, and all the holy vessels of the tabernacle. So everything else that Moses had made at Mount Sinai. "And he spoke to the earth with a loud voice, Earth, 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 hear the word of the mighty God, and receive what I commit to you, and guard them until the last times." And then this goes on. But so in this tradition outside of the Bible, they have the like the earth, the ark is hidden down below somewhere. And if you go back to Maccabees, it actually has something similar. It said they would be restored. Um, let's see. Okay, and so after Jeremiah hides the ark, according to Maccabees, it says some of those who followed Jeremiah came up later, intending to mark the way, because it was supposed to be like a secret mission to hide all this, and but could not find the way. Then Jeremiah learned of it. He rebuked them and declared, "The place shall remain unknown until God gathers his people together again and shows his mercy. Then the Lord will disclose these things, and the glory of God and the cloud will appear." That's the Shekinah glory. And they were shown as they were shown in the case of Moses and as of Solomon. So again, they always talk about this in both of these accounts, a future time that the ark would come out. Baruch says the last days. Maccabees just says future time, and the people when God gathers his people together. And then if you outside the Bible and outside of these books, you go to Ellen White, and I'll read to you what she says in Prophets and Kings.
Yeah.
And she's talking, and this is a kind of a famous quote too for those who study her writings. It says, among the righteous still in Jerusalem. So this is Prophets and Kings, chapter 37. Yeah, 37. So we're looking at page 453, paragraph 2. And she doesn't mention Jeremiah's name. 1 second. Because actually, if you read the Bible, Jeremiah was locked up during the time of the Jerusalem was destroyed. The king had thrown him in the dungeon. But it said, among the righteous still in Jerusalem, to whom had been made plain the divine purpose, so God was talking to them, were some who determined to place beyond the reach of the ruthless hands the sacred ark, containing the tables of stone on which had been traced the precepts of the Decalogue. This they did. With mourning and sadness, they secreted the ark in a cave where it was to be hidden from the people of Israel and Judah because of their sins, and was to be no more restored to them. That sacred ark is yet hidden. It has never been disturbed since it was secreted. But then you read from there's a short quote she wrote someplace else, and this I have it in a PDF here. And this one talks about this to be hidden. There's a play. I'm trying to find it. Breathing, morning sadness, hidden in the cave. This is in personal letter. Here we go. The God's appointed time. This is in Bible commentary 1102, and other places too. Manuscripts 122, written in 1901. And he, being Christ, gave unto Moses, which he had made an end of communicating with him upon Mount Sinai, 2 tables of testimony, the tables of stone, written by the finger of God. Nothing written on these tables shall be blotted out. The precious record of the law was placed in the Ark of the Testament and is still there, safely hidden from the human family. But in God's appointed time, he will bring forth these tables of stone to be a testimony to all the world against the disregard of his commandments and against the idolatrous worship of a counterfeit Sabbath. So in her writings here, she believed that the future purpose of the ark, which is basically the ark is a box to hold the tablets, was to bring forth the tablets during a future time when there's a Sunday Sabbath issue. which as Adventists we believe there will be, and that Sunday laws will be promoted by the government. And so you have this interesting, like for her, the whole thing was the ark was hidden for a reason for the future. Of course, these other books they don't mention that, but they do mention the ark being hidden. And then if you look at just the historical record, it makes no sense for the ark to be hidden in Ethiopia or even in Egypt here where I'm at. But to be hidden in the Jerusalem area where the ark was at the time that the Babylonians came.
And so, do you? That was actually my next question. Where do you believe the ark is currently, and what do you think about that? What kind of proof do you have? And I know we ultimately don't have proof right now, but if you were to go somewhere, where would you think it might be?
I'm going to go somewhere where it would be. So when you look at the Jerusalem area, there are a number of sites people have claimed they've either seen the ark or that the ark was hidden and they haven't gotten to it yet. Let's look at the first claim, and that is the ark being hidden on the Temple Mount, where the Dome of the Rock, the famous Golden Dome, is, in the Alaska Mosque. This temple platform is where King Solomon's temple first stood, the first temple, and that had the ark. That the Babylonians destroyed that temple, and then later, after the captivity, the second temple was built by Zerubbabel, and then King Herod enlarged it, and it became the famous Second Temple during the time of Christ. And you have a number of Jewish rabbis who have claimed that they were looking for the ark under the temple. They believe that Solomon had a way to hide the ark deep in the chambers in the Temple Mount. And in the early 80s, they were trying to even go down in there and take it out. And they even broke through the outside walls underground to go into this area that's sacred today to not only the Jews, but also the Muslims. And so when the Palestinians heard about it, a huge riot broke out. And I don't know I think people were killed, but definitely what happened because of this effort, they blocked up that tunnel. The Palestinians, I believe even the Israeli police. And so when you go on this tour of the Western Wall tunnels, and you see these huge, massive foundation stones from the time of Christ, the tour guides will stop. You're underground under the city of Jerusalem, and you're on the western side of the Temple Mount. As you're walking along, they'll stop at this one place. There's even a sign. It'll say, this is where, like, you're the closest to where the most holy would have been, further behind the wall, above ground. But they also say this was also where a certain rabbi and his men broke through, and they were into the Temple Mount itself, tunneling through. And there's different stories thrown out whether the guy actually, he claimed he saw the ark or he was close to where he thought it was. So somewhere on the Temple Mount is one claim. The next claim is one I'm more familiar with, and that's he was an Adventist, Ron Wyatt, and he claimed that God had led him to the spot on the Garden Gym property, which is on the northern city walls, just outside the Damascus Gate, so outside city limits for the old city. And he believed that right where Christ was crucified, the blood of Christ went down onto the ark, and that this is where salvation was met 600 years later, after they hid the ark, because the ark was hidden about 586 BC during the destruction. So his story was that he was digging there for 2 or 3 years or more from the late 70s until 1982, and he claimed he saw the ark in a chamber, that he was tunneling through Mount Moriah, him and his sons, and they saw the ark, but that they came in through the natural tunnels that are in this limestone mountain of Mount Moriah, so they couldn't remove it. So he had no proof, and he said every time he took a picture, the pictures were blurry, or like basically his what he understood was that God didn't want the ark to be revealed until a certain time. So that was his story. And then I think there's another claim that the ark is hidden down in the city of David area, but basically we're in Jerusalem, and I think those claims make the most sense. Now, which claim out of all those that I personally believe? Again, without any proof, I do believe that the story, I think it makes biblical sense. I know there are those who will say this is not a good biblical theology, but I think that the ark being hidden where Ron said he claimed to have found it without proof, is to me, I don't see anything wrong with that idea.
Hmm.
So there's no proof. So I don't even argue. Most of the time, I don't even discuss it with people unless I'm
Yeah.
really into this topic, because it's pointless. And I can't prove it, so why should I argue it? But for my belief, I think that's a good spot for it, and being under the crucifixion site. Now, I'll tell you an interesting story. When I was here where I was there in Israel in
Hmm.
December, I got an email that came in, and it was from a well-known Jewish rabbi who writes books, and a friend who knew him too had told him to talk to me, and he was looking for the Ark of the Covenant.
Huh.
And so this, I'm not going to give his name out because he's still looking. And so he asked me, because I was there, I was in Jerusalem at that time for 3 weeks in December, and he needed help. And the spot he was looking for it was in the area that he couldn't go himself.
Hmm.
I don't know if he was even in Israel because I didn't, we just communicated over email. Maybe he's back in the US. But anyways, he asked me to do specific things, like take pictures mainly, and try to look on old maps to see if he could find the spot above ground. So we did all that, and then at the end, his next step, he said, "Now I need you to get a metal detector or some type of device and bring it to the site, which is that would cause a problem." And so he was thinking, looking for equipment that I could hide on my clothing, that I could go into this off limits area and use this metal detector to see if the ark is hiding there. And that's where we're left. It's left there for now. But it's interesting. I meet some interesting people in all these travels, and that was one that just recently happened. Oh, and then on the same trip, I met an individual. He um uh, and I met him physically. He wasn't over email, but he takes care of the red heifers, and which are
Oh,
the cows that they're trying to get ready for the
I
sacrifices.
know.
So they want to burn. They need the ashes for the purification, so they can start the third temple. And so some people in America and Texas donated these red heifers, and they shipped them to Israel, and they're being taken care of there. And I was with actually a Mormon tour group, because I know the leaders of this group, and they brought me along to talk about some of this stuff about the Ark of the Covenant and things like that. The Mormons are interested in Ron Wyatt, and so we went and visited the red heifers. They knew the gentleman, and so I met him. But we were on a side trip together down in the Dead Sea, and he was looking, or someone he knew in the past believed that the ark was down there. That somehow they brought out the city of David out of the Temple Mount and used the tunnels that maybe Zedekiah used when he
Mhm.
fled. You remember the story when the Babylonians were about to destroy the whole city?
Mm.
King Zedekiah, the last king of Israel, he fled with his men down to Jericho, where Nebuchadnezzar's, I think, general captured them.
Mm.
And then, so somehow they were able to escape. And so this gentleman, who he's no longer around, but some of his people who follow his work are still looking for it down in the Dead Sea area. And they think that the ark would be hidden there. And so I met this guy. So it's interesting. You have all these different stories and people looking for the ark around this, time period. And now they have the CIA document come out.
It's all kinds of stuff is happening right now, and that's very interesting. And you said I wanted to go back real quick to that metal detector thing. You said that's where you left it. What do you mean? You left the metal detector there, or you?
No, that's where his project. Well, right now Ramadan just finished, and so um,
Don't say anything that would incriminate
basically,
you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Basically, it wasn't a good time to do anything,
Yeah.
and so yeah, so it has not been done. So and he was looking at a certain spot. And if it's not too dangerous, I was willing to help him. The first part was kind of easy. I was just, taking pictures with my iPhone, acting
Yeah.
like a tourist. The next one, first I got to get permission to get into the spot he wants me to go, and that requires, I know a guy who knows a guy, put it that way. and this guy could possibly get me into the spot, but then to bring in equipment, I'd have to be, hiding under my clothing or something.
Yeah, yeah.
That could, yeah. So, but it's interesting that you have, and the reason why he had asked me to do it and not himself, this rabbi, because they're not allowed up there. Well, I'm not giving it away, but they're not allowed in certain spots because if it's holy, then they're not supposed to be in a certain spot. So they had to ask for a Gentile to look for it, and so that was the reason. No, he told me, my friends, that you're a Gentile, so I guess it's okay. So you can go looking for it because I can't personally because he's the Jew. So
Well, very good. I'm very curious. The places that people think they are. I don't know the geography of Jerusalem or that area at all. And if maybe I can put up a little picture with the little star where the different areas are that people think they are.
That probably help.
Yeah, I would like to see that myself, and I think that would help the audience understand a little bit better. Can you give me like a little pin or something on Google Earth or something like that you can show me? Because I don't even know where the north side of Jerusalem is, really.
So you want me to send it so you can post that in post, or right now you want to?
Yeah. I'll add it in post. Just send me an email.
Okay, I can send it to you. So you want me? So right now, do you have Google up?
Yeah,
or do you want me just to?
I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. Let me remember Google Earth up. That'll be fun. Okay. Here we go. Flying down.
Wow. This is not remote viewing, guys. So just so you know what it is.
Yeah, right. So
this is remote scrolling.
I don't know even what I'm looking at here.
Yeah, it's a whole because the Jerusalem city now is huge. You got a lot of modern developed all the way around it. Zoom in just a little closer. We should see the Temple Mount. Okay. Now scroll up to your or it's the top right. You'll see a square platform right there. Scroll in. Okay, just right to there. Yeah, so this is the Temple Mount that King Herod had built. So there was a Roman fortress on the north west corner. You can see the outline of the actual, right in that area there would have been a Roman fortress, not there anymore. Then when you zoom back out, you'll see the actual Dome of the Rock, which is the Golden Dome on a platform right there. And many believe that this area is where the temple stood. There's difference of opinion as to where on the Temple Mount people think. Most people say it was on where the Dome of the Rock is today. That's where Herod's temple stood, which would then been where Solomon's temple stood. Others say, I'm just watching a video today. There are a couple of scholars who do say that the temple itself was north of this. On the same Temple Mount, but just north of the building of the Dome of the Rock.
Mm-hmm.
And then others, I've seen a lady, she has I don't know her background, but there are people who like what she has presented on the same topic. She's researched this, and she believes it's on the southern end of that southwestern corner. She
right down here?
That's where, on the platform itself. And so then the actual city of David went out from there to the south.
So is there like caves or stuff? Why do they think it's here if there's nothing here? I'm confused by that.
The whole city of David, this whole, you can call, the Bible talks about mountains, but if you've been to Colorado and see the Rocky Mountains, you're like, these are hills. But Jerusalem is built on mountains. Yeah, Mount Moriah it looks like a hill to us who are used to the big mountains. And so the Temple Mount, that would have been the area for Mount Moriah, that whole ridge going south to north to south. And it's a limestone sedimentary rock formation, these mountains or hills. And so it's very easy for water or acid or whatever, just to mix and create cavities. And so you have a lot of natural and man-made tunnels and caves and cavities all through under Jerusalem.
Under here,
of course,
under this thing, or under the whole thing.
Yeah, and plus there's like cisterns where they stored water. You can look up the cisterns on the Temple Mount. There's maps from the 1800s where some of these early explorers were able to map out these cisterns. And so some people believe that in some of these cisterns could be the Ark of the Covenant or directly much deeper under the Dome of the Rock. And just west of that Dome of the Rock, or the edge of the Temple Mount, that's where you do this underground tunnel tour to show you the Herod's platform. Along the western wall of the Temple Mount itself. Yeah, underground there, that straight line So you go, there's a tour you can take, and it'll take you right across from the Dome of the Rock, like right there. You stop. You're right west of the Dome of the Rock building, but you're underground. And this is where they were digging. At the same time Ron was digging north of the city, they were digging here. And you look up at the old news about what happened, the big riots that happened, because they were looking. These rabbis were looking for the Ark of the Covenant, and they entered underground into this platform. So now it's all cemented up, but they'll point out the spot if you go on the tour. And then if you zoom out just a little bit and then scroll up as you're going north, so going up, there's the city wall, the old city wall, which was built. The city wall today is the Ottoman Turk, during the Ottoman Empire. They control this area of the Middle East.
You're talking about this city wall right here, or are you talking about?
No, that's the edge of the Temple Mount. So kind of where the yellow was at. Go back down.
Right here.
There's that road. Yeah, so that's the old city wall. You can actually see it there. Yeah, it's like a castle wall, but it was built by the Ottoman Turks. If you just zoom out just a little bit and then scroll to your left, so right there. Now stop. Now zoom in just a little bit. Right there, you'll see a bus station. See all these big vehicles, long, skinny vehicles, white. Yeah, that's a bus station. Right beside it, just north, is this huge Muslim cemetery. That's a hill. That's like the top of Mount Moriah.
Oh, wow.
And so the whole ridge of Mount Moriah goes all the way down to the city of David, past the Temple Mount. But this part where the bus station's at, that's where when you're in the Garden Tomb property, right beside this bus station property is what they call Gordon's Calvary, or the Skull Hill, because you have this rock formation that looks like two eye sockets and a nose that's broken now. But so this whole area is full of cavities and tunnels too, because again, this is all limestone rock that's pretty soft. Now the Garden Tomb property, if you look at that Muslim cemetery, just to the left of it, you see a lot of trees. Right there, zoom in. Just the trees that are kind of below, not that one, the main part. Right. Scroll, move south, not north. That's the actual Catholic property, St. Stephen's. That's it. That is owned by a British organization. They bought the property in the 1800s because a tomb was found on there, an empty tomb. And they believe that this is the tomb of Christ. And it was on this property that Ron got permission in the late 70s to start excavating. Him and his two sons, they cleaned out this area of the property that was not landscaped at the time. It was kind of a trashy dump area. And this is where you can go and you can worship and meditate there and read your Bible. And a lot of church groups go there, have communion. A lot of tour groups go there. They have a really nice facility, well landscaped area. But it was on that property that Ron believed was the crucifixion. Of course, many Christians believe that is the actual true spot where Christ was crucified and buried.
Right here. I thought this is where you said the tomb was.
Yeah, so it's a big property. I mean, it's not big, but it's the property itself. I don't know how many acres that would be, or half an acre or 2 acres. I don't know. Visually, you could measure it on Google Maps. But on the property, there's a tomb, and then you go around the corner. It kind of follow the green. If you go to the, it's kind of like an L shape. If you go to the bottom, so right there, go back up. You can scroll in. You'll see where I'll tell you where the tomb is. It's kind of a bad way to do all this, but no, scroll up now so you get to see the tree property. Okay, stop right there. Now zoom strike in the middle of your screen. Zoom in. Right past where the trees are. Right above the trees is kind of some cement-looking area. Yeah, right. That's the edge of the property right there. That's where there's actually a tomb. It's a cliff right there. So built into the side of that mountain face is a tomb. And so this is their whole property. All that green is their trees and plants. And so the tomb, it's just right up against the edge of their property line. Above them is the Muslim cemetery. Now, if you scroll down, follow the like an L, follow the trees around the corner to the south. Yeah, so just kind of move over, scroll down. Right there where you're at, where your cursor was at, that's where Ron Wyatt was excavating. So he believed this is the crucifixion site. Now, the Garden Tomb does not recognize any of his claims. They do know he dug there. They gave, the person in charge back in the 80s did give him permission. So he wasn't digging illegally. And the IAA at the time was the Department of Antiquities. They also gave him permission. So that's an interesting thing there, that later they say, no, he dug illegally. but we know from letters from others and from people who saw the IAA or the Department of Antiquities archaeologists like sign off on his permit.
Yeah.
So there's different reasons as to like why would they give him permission? He wasn't an archaeologist. Did he just have the favor, with them? And then for them to deny it later, why was that? Was it just because he was controversial, or is it because they're hiding something? There's maybe it's both. But here's something interesting, and I can tell you it, but I won't show the photos yet. So in the late '90s, when Ron, I think he had just passed away. Or maybe he was just, he passed away in August '99. But I had contacted the IAA, the Israeli Antiquities Authority, and I just asked, and this is where, I wanted to ask them about anything in their archives without mentioning Ron's name.
Oh, yeah.
Because then I'll shut down the request. So I just said, hey, do you have any archaeological reports or photos from 1980 to 1982, when Ron claimed he had found the ark, and that was when he was actually on site digging in your archives, and didn't say anything else. And then the archivist responded, and this Israeli archaeologist said, "Oh yeah, we have this scientific report. It looked like it was misfiled, and it has this certain archaeologist's name." And the guy's name was one of the guys that Ron had mentioned in a meeting that's been recorded on YouTube from, I think, New Zealand or someplace. And Ron said he lists 4 people that had signed his permit. And this guy's name was one of them. But anyway, so I thought that perked my interest. Okay, but they said, okay, there's like 3 photographs in this file. And they show pottery pieces in front of a cave opening. That's all it said. So I wanted to see those. I was like, okay, here's an Israeli archaeologist taking photographs in the cave opening area in 1981. This is where Ron was in the middle of his dig. What's this about? So I asked for permission. Then they got suspicious. They're like, well, what do you want it for? I said, oh, just for private research. They said, okay, well, it should be no problem. Just got to pay a fee. I said, okay. And then they came back to me and said, well, these are unpublished photographs. So you need permission from the publication committee. And I said, okay, who are they? And then that was like the last they communicated with me. Like, okay, no problem. So then fast forward though, yeah, it's in the back of my mind. I've even asked other friends who are archaeologists to try to get them, and then I remember one time COVID hit, and then so everything was shut down, and the IA, they were all working from home in Israel, so they couldn't do anything. But then out of the blue, I got this this person contact me, and he's a top attorney in Israel. And he was telling me later, he said, yeah, if you look at this time, was this 4 years ago? He said, like, you look at the top 10 stories about lawsuits in Israel, his firm handles the top 6 out of those 10. So he's well known. But he became a believer and interested because of the Exodus and hearing about Mount Sinai in Arabia. He grew up as an atheist, Jewish. His last name is Cohen, I guess I can say that, which is the priestly line. Interesting. The Cohenites were the priests. Anyways, but he grew up as an atheist, and then he became a believer. And he just out of the blue contacted me and said, I would love to help any way I can for anything. And right away I thought, oh, these photos, I've been waiting 20, this was 1999, and then now we're looking at 2022 or so, like 22 years later, I was still thinking about that. So I said, hey, would you want to check this out for me? He said, oh, you know what? One of the ladies in my law firm, she's good friends with the IA archivist. I was like, oh, really? So within a couple of days, they had emailed me the photos for free.
Wow.
For free. And he said, do whatever you want with them. So I haven't published anything yet because, again, it doesn't prove Ron found the ark. But this is what's interesting. What it proves is that the IAA had an archaeologist on site documenting some of the things that were pulling up out of the ground. And if you look at one of the photographs, it's the exact spot where Ron said he started his excavation. You see, all the rocks are the same in Ron's photograph behind, like where the pottery's at, and where this Israeli archaeologist took his photograph. Now, sadly, that Israeli archaeologist has passed away too, so we can't talk to him about it. But they had these photographs in their archives, and no one probably ever thought about destroying it if they really believed Ron found the ark, which again we don't know.
Sure.
But to me, that was just another thing, because I have letters from the Israeli Antiquities from the '90s where they just really badmouth Ron and even the Garden Tomb property, very negative, and say, he doesn't have his degree, he would not even get permission to excavate. But one time they were even begging, so, well, even if Ron did it illegally, if he wants to share what he found with us, we would love to see his report. So it was kind of interesting that they would say it that way. And this was in the mid '90s. But then, you have on file, in their archives, these photographs, not the Ark of the Covenant, but of pottery that Ron was pulling out of the ground right at the same place, at the same time he was digging, the same location he was digging. For those who believe Ron's story, that's like another piece of evidence. For those who don't, they're just like, okay, well, it doesn't prove Ron found the Ark, just proves that he was, digging on the garden tomb. One of those interesting things, though, I just threw it out there. And I haven't, it's been, what is it, 3 or 4 years now, and some things I'm just waiting to say, okay, how can I tie this in? And I don't want to just do a story just for clickbait, especially for the Ark. I was thinking,
Sure.
maybe there's something, but then the CIA this stuff came out. I was like, hey, this could be interesting to tie it all in.
Right.
But you get some things you do at the right time because of the interest level, and you can get the truth out that way. So there's nothing wrong with that, but just to do it on its own, just for subscribers' sake. Yeah, and I do believe the Ark is still around, whether it's Ron who found it or still waiting to be found. As an actress, I do believe that Ellen White is correct that it has a future purpose, that the Ark exists in a chamber. She doesn't say Jerusalem, but the way she wrote that, if you read that paragraph, the couple paragraphs there in Prophets of Kings, she's talking about it being hidden right before the Babylonians destroyed the city. And it goes along with Second Baruch and Second Maccabees, these same other non-biblical books, but written closer to that time frame that talk about the Ark being hidden for a future purpose.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. And all possibly around those areas that are right there. I have a very ignorant question. Why is the IAA so mad at Ron Wyatt?
Well, I don't know why. I mean, maybe we can ask them, why would they be mad? I think he has, and this goes back to, if you believe the story, it comes down to you're going to make a lot of outlandish claim. I say that from their point of view. They say, okay, This is the guy saying he found the Ark of the Covenant in Israel. So if you don't provide the photographs, like, what's the reason? And so Ron had his reasons for different things, saying the photographs were blurry, or to them it's like, oh, the dog ate the evidence type of story. And so from a cynical point of view, you can see why. You can say, well, here's a guy who's making a lot of claims. We don't want to be associated with that guy.
I see.
But it is, but from the other point of view, you say, well, because Ron claimed he worked with certain people there, and one of those individuals is still alive, actually. But this guy won't talk about any of it. But it's interesting. There was a reporter asked him some questions about Ron Wyatt in 2003. It was in the Jerusalem Post. And right after our first excavation, Zedekiah's cave, when we were doing this after Ron Wyatt had passed away. But in there, they interviewed people who didn't like Ron, like one atheist archaeologist in the IAA, and he was like, "Oh, this guy just, he's a con artist." And then they interviewed this one other individual who Ron claimed was one of the guys who signed his permit, and this Israeli archaeologist who was high up, and he was, the main guy for that area. He had nothing negative to say about Ron. He said he believed Ron acted out of a pure heart. I think was the exact words or something. And here's his chance. Ron's gone. He could have said, "Oh yeah, that guy was a con artist. I didn't sign any." He doesn't say he signed anything for Ron, but he just says like he thinks Ron's story when Ron talks about him being with an archaeologist is referring to himself. There are photos of Ron with this guy, but I think he was at a conference in America. But still, Ron knew the guy, and the guy, this one news article only said kind things about Ron. He didn't say Ron found the Ark, but still, that was a chance for the guy to, to say, hey, Ron made it all up, but he didn't.
Very interesting. And is there? With him. I don't want to make this all about Ron Wyatt because I know that's not necessarily your purpose, but I am curious a little bit more. If there's one documentary about Ron Wyatt's discoveries, what would you recommend watching?
It depends on the different ones. So if you look at the Mount Sinai Exodus discovery, which I believe is a discovery, and more scholars are seeing it that way, like Mount Sinai being in the land of Midian, which is northwest Arabia. Then his pretty long film, or it's a bunch of films, but it's the Pattern of Evidence ones by Tim Mahoney. And he goes, it's like a Discovery Channel type of documentary film, high quality, top notch, but there's 6 of them or more now. But anyways, they're each a couple hours long, I think. So, but that one hits like the pros and cons of the Exodus route and Mount Sinai. And at the end, his conclusion is, and he believed Sinai was in Arabia, but he's showing both sides.
Sure.
But at the end, he states on camera that Mount Sinai, this Jebel Makla, Jebel Lawz, that area there in Arabia, is the best candidate for Mount Sinai. And so I think that's the best one on that topic. Now on the Noah's Ark one,
is that the place you've taken people to? Jebel Lawz?
That's exactly. That's Jebel Makla is the actual name of the peak. Ron called it Jebel Lawz. That's the range, the mountain range there. And there's actually a peak called Jebel Lawz, like 5 miles to the north or so. But this area is where the locals, even when Ron went out there, they said Hina Jebel Musa, which in Arabic means here's the mountain of Moses. And this is before YouTube, because some critics say, these locals, what they say now is because they watch a YouTube video and now they're trying to make money. Like, no, the guy, and Ron was with another guy who just happened to be on the trip, David Fazel, who passed away. But even Fazel, when he was there in 1985 with Ron, on Ron's second trip, but his first time legally, because the year before he went in illegally and got caught. But Fazel just happened to be there with him because he was interested in Ron's Noah's Ark site. And because he was on that trip, the Saudi businessman who gave Ron a legitimate visa at the time, because Saudi was a closed country until 2019. Like you had to get a business visa or a Hajj, if you're going to Mecca as a Muslim, or military or whatever. But you couldn't just get a tourist visa to go to visit the kingdom until September 2019. And so like when we went in 2016, we got a business visa through this Saudi prince. And so at that time, Ron got a business visa, but because Fazel was with him, he got a free trip too, and he was able to go see this mountain. And when they were there, the local Bedouin came up. It was like he was like a sheik, like the one main guy that lived there at the area. And he said to them, Hena Jebel Musa, here in English, here's the mountain of Moses. Now, how did this guy, who there's no YouTube back then.
Yeah.
Why would he say like this peak is Mount Sinai? I was like, what about that one or this one? When there's a traditional Mount Sinai in St. Catherine's, which is a monastery run by Greek Orthodox, and it's in Egypt where I'm at. And so why would this guy know that type of information unless it was passed down? And then so you have this local tradition. You have a lot of if you look at the history from the classical time period, like around the time of Josephus and Christ's time. The idea that Jethro, like Mount Sinai, is near where Jethro lived, and Jethro lived in the city called Midian, which is the modern day town of Al-Bada in Saudi Arabia. And they have a traditional well of Jethro where Moses met his wife there, future wife. So you have all this tradition, even in Islamic sources, and the Middle Ages all pointing to Sinai there. The Patterns of Evidence is a great film. If you want something shorter, I know there are different YouTubers who have made little videos. My friend Ryan Moreau, he made a 20-minute video. You might see him on Fox sometimes. He's a national security analyst. He does his own tours. But he's a good friend. I helped get him his first visa in, and we filmed his 20-minute film for him, a friend of mine, and I was there, and we did the film. Others edited it, but that's one I'll send to you. You people can watch that.
Cool.
And the Noah's Ark, same thing. Like different YouTube videos out there. I can send you a list of links you can watch. From short little 5-minute ones all the way up to a couple hours.
Yeah. No, I watched Ron Wyatt, some things on Ron Wyatt a long time ago, but I thought this looks interesting. I didn't commit it to memory, and so when I had the ability to actually interview some more of the official people, I thought, well, I want to actually make sure that I believe this before I put it out on YouTube. So,
and so like today, the same thing. There's no proof he found the Ark of the Covenant. You can say, hey, it matched. Like maybe there's some things that CIA document that's matching Ron's location by chance. It's matching what Ellen White wrote, but you can say, Ron was Adventist. You could have just said that because he read Ellen White. It matches the biblical account in the sense that the Ark was lost somewhere in Jerusalem, that type of. But the specifics, there's no proof of his story of the blood on the mercy seat, and so you'll find a lot of pastors and conference officials, and even Adventist archaeologists. I don't think there's one that accepts anything Ron says. It's fine. I like when I'm dealing with the Noah's Ark site. Every 2 years they have a Noah's Ark symposium where they bring in all these lay people and archaeologists and different professors from Turkey and around the world. And so I'm good friends now with the local university that organizes it, and so they contacted me in 2023 at the beginning. They said, "Hey, we want you to help promote, like get creation, like West. They want Westerners." They said, "We don't just want Turkish scientists." I was like, "Okay." So I sent the word out to different people, like trying to get creationists, but also sent it to Adventist archaeologists. While I was in the Istanbul airport, heading actually on one of my many trips through Turkey, heading back to my hometown there at the base of Mount Ararat, and I hear some Americans speaking. I thought, wait, I recognize that one voice. I turn around, it's actually, I guess I can say his name, Dr. Randall Yonkers, who's in charge. He's the department head at Andrews University for archaeology. And now he's against the claim that Drupanar site is Noah's Ark or that Ron found anything. But a very nice guy, and I've known of him and been to his seminars, many, since the '90s actually. And he was there with his team, and I'm like, oh, and I knew that they got interested a couple of years ago, looking for a Noah's Ark on the big volcano.
Sure.
But then they kind of backtracked from that. And I said, well, so what are you guys doing here? And he said, oh, we're going to study more of the like all the sites, but more also the history and the folklore and the myths of Noah's Ark in the region. And I said, oh, that's cool. And so we were both flying into the same airport in Eastern Turkey. And so right after I said goodbye to his team, and then I had a meeting with the Agri University, and the vice rector at the time. In this meeting, him and another professor, they told me, hey, we need this help. Like, who can you bring in for a keynote? And I immediately said, oh, Dr. Yonkers. Now, he actually presented at one time, like they held this every 2 years. So I think it was in 2019 he presented. And I said, well, what this guy? And I know he's presented at Azor and other places, like, he's well-known, good speaker. And they said, oh, that's a good idea. And so actually, by the time of the October conference, these two universities had partnered. Andrews had helped pay for, I think it was half the conference. And we had two Adventist professors who were the keynote for the big symposium, and that included Randall Yonkers for the archaeology, and then they brought in the dean of the School of Theology that Randy did, and he gave the other keynote. It was about the story of Noah's Ark, the theme of Noah's Ark in the Bible. And so the presentations are I don't know if it's on the internet. I'll have to check, but. Anyways, I do have the video file for it. So here's this, we get these people involved. And then at the end, it's a 2-day conference. You give papers. I gave 2 papers myself. So you have, lay people and archaeologists. And I'm always meeting, I see them at lunch. And, it's a very friendly, even though they don't think the site is the real Noah's Ark, probably think I'm crazy. But, we get to the 3rd day, we're at the Noah's Ark site because it's like an outing day or excursion day. So they go to the base of Mount Ararat. Then they go over to our site, which is just across the valley. And we have a chai and tea and baklava desserts. And me and my friend, we sponsored that for the whole team. And his team is down on the Ark. And I talked to one of the professors who's doing this interview with Turkish press. I said, hey, you should team up with this university, like announce that you're teaming with Andrews University. And in his interview, which goes worldwide, he announces that they're teaming up with Andrews University to study Noah's Ark, like the whole area. And you could say including the Drupanar site, but and I said, you better go tell. I told the professor, you better go tell Randy, because Dr. Yonkers, because I don't know if he knows you guys are teaming up. But at the end of the day, his team went down on the boat. They said, it's all geology, and we were working on them. The couple professors we're dealing with in Turkey, one's a Turkish geologist who studied it the most since 1985. And this guy's retired now, but he's a geologist. And I consider him the world expert for that region. And he believes it's not a natural formation at all, that you're dealing with a man-made object, and what else is boat-shaped in the mountains of Ararat, the exact size of Noah's Ark. So this guy, he's still alive, thankfully. And we had just filmed the whole series with him in Switzerland at a friend's TV studio there. And so I was just there in January and February in Switzerland doing that. So then you have this university project they did announce with Andrews. I don't know what all they'll study. They're looking at all the sites, what they're going to do. But it's exciting times. Who knows what will happen? But just so you know that, if you send an email to like Randall Yonkers or to like another church archaeologist, they'll be like, "Oh, Ron Wyatt, he's a scammer or a con artist, or no one believes this stuff." So
it is what it is. Everyone has an opinion. So yeah, I'm curious about.
And in archaeology, they say it's hard to get two archaeologists to agree to one thing. I'm not just saying that just to but I do believe that you have a lot of nitpicking or people. I don't know what the reasons are, but more work needs to be done on these sites, and we're doing it, and others are. And so let's see what happens. But I think it's the best candidate, just like Mount Sinai in Arabia. And I tell people, until you find another place that has Bedouins saying this is Mount Sinai, another place that matches the biblical account, has a big area for the Israelites to camp, then this is the best candidate for me. So for now, that's the Mount Sinai, and I haven't seen one other. There's at least a dozen or so Mount Sinai's proposed, and they're all over the place. But only one seems to have everything lined up exactly, and that's the one right there called Jebel Makla.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting. I've really enjoyed watching your channel and all the drone video that you put out on that. It's been
we have
fantastic.
a lot. I could do another series about drone adventures with birds attacking drones, $6,000 drones falling from the sky, sneaking in drones to places we shouldn't be, using royal letters to get through customs. Yeah, but all that aside, the interesting thing, and I love showing new people these sites. We just had a tour group last month, February, and mainly Australian actually on that group. But seeing people where they get their first reaction to sites and where it matches the Bible, and they see the story come alive. Sometimes you can say, okay, you're 90% sure. But unless you find another site, again, you're like, this is the best candidate. And so when they realize what happened at these sites, that's why I love doing going back. Because some people ask me, aren't you sick of seeing the same thing over and over? No, I'll do maybe 4 tours a year, sometimes back to back. And then I do private groups, like film people, like, pastors wanting to film, or even just like I had Mennonites, Mormons, people who wanted to have their own tour on their own. But no, I love seeing, of course, you meet a lot of new people, but just seeing their reaction when they see the Bible stories come alive.
So if people wanted to support you, or they wanted to find it and do a tour with you, how would they do that? I want to kind of promote your content and see how people can get a hold of you.
If there's just one thing that I want to look up on YouTube, you can look up Discovered, past tense, Discovered Media, and on there are different links to our websites. For the Mount Sinai Exodus trips we do, you can go to discoveredsinai.com. And then for the Noah's Ark research, which also has the tour link on the menu, is noahsarkscans.com. So noahsarkscans.com. And you can look up. And so we do have certain like public tour dates set up, different links. So if you want to do like a 3-day, 5-day, 12-day for Turkey, especially. And we'll soon do that for Mount Sinai, but for that one we have a 5-day, 1 week long tour, and then we have a 6-day tour for Egypt. But and then those who just want to show up, so it's not a money thing. It does support, does support my living overseas and doing the research and making videos. But at the same time, we do a lot of free stuff. So when people just say, "Hey, I'm going to be in the area," I'm like, okay, just show up at the visitor center at Noah's Ark. Or we met up with people at Mount Sinai, and then they just in their car, follow my tour group.
That's cool.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So, or if they want to go on their own, I don't. It's not a secret. I'll tell them exactly where sites are, and I say, okay, well, here's the GPS, here's the car rental companies we use, here's a local guide. And I've sent many different, especially I get a lot of non-Adventists, of course. So a lot of different denominations and people coming through. They don't fit in my schedule. They want a like really cheap tour, or I'm not around during that time in another country. So I'll send them to the local, the Saudi companies have made some bunch of money off the people I've sent them. So it's not people who want to attack, say, oh, it's a money thing. No, it's not. It's a passion. I love doing this, and I'm thankful that I learned of these sites through Ron Wyatt, and then studying other people. It's just not just Ron Wyatt stuff, but that's a big part of it. And seeing these sites on my own and being able to share now, through YouTube.
That's cool. That's awesome. Well, man, this has been eye-opening to see everything that you're seeing. And I'm gonna go to your YouTube channel and look some more of those drone videos.
What's my latest?
Yeah,
really shorts. But I do want to get out this CIA video. I just trying to think of when. But let's see. The next one I have lined up. We had Pastor Rick Renner, who's he's I don't know if he's charismatic, he's just evangelical, but he moved to Moscow right when the wall fell, and he started a ministry. Now they're, like Amazing Facts are huge. They have like 200 employees worldwide. Mm-hmm. So he does a lot of video programs. So they came out last year and the year before to see the Noah's Ark site, and he wrote a book to help edit. It's about giants in the Bible and the so-called Nephilim. I don't want to say so-called. We know the Nephilim exist, but everyone has their take on what they are. But anyways, he wrote a book about it, and then so I've been putting out the videos of our trip because I was there for a week with them as their guide. I was also on screen, just like I did with Jim Scudder from Chicago. So I was kind of like the on-screen guide. And it was really great with that group. And so those are some of the videos I'm slowly putting out about the Noah's Ark adventure with them.
Cool. So. Very good. So one word answer, or maybe a sentence, because I know we're going to get cut off here in about 5 minutes. But I wanted to ask you, have you in your archaeology, or has any of your archaeology friends or been digging out there, ever find giant skeletons? One word or one sentence answer.
Yes. That's it.
I expected you to say no, but really,
it's a whole story. No, I have. Let's see. There's at least 2 people I know from Turkey who have seen it. And I've seen photographs of one. I
mean, legit. I've seen photographs. I
can tell the story. And then then Ron Wyatt claimed he had found some bones. It was in Nevada. One was from there, but definitely one was from Turkey too that he had brought back. I don't know how, but it was back in the 80s. You can do that. Put giant bones in your luggage, but they're like finger bones.
Yeah, clearly we got a lot to talk about. I actually do want to get you on here again. I want to talk all about that because I've seen pictures and I always thought they were photoshopped, and I didn't think that they were legit. But if there is some validity to these giant
like Noah's
skulls,
Ark?
Well, no, I've seen
the giants one.
Yeah, the giants and the skulls and stuff. I'm not convinced that those are legit, but if there's some validity to them, I'm curious. And maybe those pictures themselves are not, but if you've seen something,
there's some really fake ones with like this huge, like 30 foot tall. Yeah, but
yeah, I am curious about that. If you found any human bones, like I'm sure there's big bones, but if you found anything human that has been bigger than 8 feet,
So you asked if I knew somebody, and I said, well, I know of at least 2 from Turkey, who in that area of the Noah's Ark site have seen giant skeletons. And the way the one guy described the skull that they had saw, him and this one, basically a local came to an acquaintance of mine and said, hey, I have this giant, like he had dug up, a lot of people there do grave robbery or looking for treasures. Sure. And so he dug up a giant skull. He showed it to this acquaintance of mine who was telling me this story. This guy then sent a photo to a friend in America. The guy who I first went to Turkey with, his name was Bill Fry, who I mentioned earlier, he had passed away, but he was from Florida. And but when he died, so my friend, I don't know, they used Hotmail back then, but he can't find any email with the attachment.
Huh.
But he told me the story because the other guy's dead now, Bill, and so this other guy was telling me the story. And I said, well, give me access to your email. I can go maybe use my IT savvy, and try to find it. But so far nothing. But he was telling the story it happened around 2001. The area, this local, I don't know if he's a farmer or something, who had dug up this burial, came from, is this area where Ron had his own story about a giant burial in that area. So, before I tell Ron's story, so basically this one little valley, everyone, I know of like 3 different stories coming out of that valley three different individuals who have giant story. Two of them have seen them. One is just telling the story about what he saw. What happened involves thousands of dollars, then a missing skull, and then the guy denying he ever had the skull. So
Oh my!
I tell you, some of this stuff could be written in a book.
Yeah,
So,
I'm very curious about this. I want to have you back, and I think there's a lot of things we can talk about. That's pretty strange indeed, and let's go from there. Good to hear from you again, Andrew. This is really
Yes.
neat to catch up, all the way from California buddies to now we're across the nation and across the world. So very cool. Out there in Cairo.
technology.
Yeah. Can you have a little prayer to close us out?
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this time where we can dig into these biblical stories. And even though the devil is trying to confuse people and throw out other things out there that will cause people to doubt the Bible, we know that the stories in the Bible are true. And I'm just thankful for Brad and what he's doing, sharing the truth on his channel. These strange things are going on in the world. Just bless him and his ministry and his family. And thank you for our time together that we can talk more about the Bible. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Andrew. We'll see you later. I hope you enjoyed that. I did. I thought it was interesting. We're going to have Andrew Jones on again because he is a very interesting character. He's done a lot of different things in the last few years that I haven't seen him. And so it'd be interesting if you guys are interested in hearing more about that, or if you have any comment on this whatsoever, leave it in the comments. I'm interested. I do read those comments, and it'd be fascinating to see what you think about this if you want to have more of this content and hear more from Andrew Jones. And if you do want to go on his tours or want to catch up and understand more about what he's talking about, you can reach him at Discovered Media on YouTube or Discovered Sinai. That's make sure you are using past tense, discovered Sinai.com, Discovered Media on YouTube. And of course, as always, if you are interested in continuing this conversation and helping us out, go to patreon.com/strangenormal. My name is Bradley, and this has been pure strangeness and absolute normalcy. Strange Normal. We'll see you next time.
You're watching Strange Normal, where the truth is the truth.